Hello and welcome to all the men and women of the West. I'm Joe. Today I've got another, news video for you all. This time regarding Tolkien. Now, we do have a Hobbit essay video coming out next week. I figured this was pretty important news. Now, I didn't really get to discuss it yet because I've been out on a trip into the US of A. Alors, à présent, I'm going to discuss this. Now, let me just adjust my mic. All right. More details emerge about the Lord of the Rings War of the Rohirrim. Edoras is destroyed, which contradicts the lore. Movie explores female point of view. Yeah, I've discussed how I'm nervous about that because Hollywood never does this very well these days. Period. Well, yeah, even House of Dragons kind of screwed it up with Alicent, who, you had the one scene where she charges to try to kill Rhaenyra, which made no sense. She would have been stuck in a convent in a heartbeat. But anyways, enough about medieval law and logic. More details have emerged regarding the Lord of the Rings War of the Rohirrim animated film from Warner Brothers Animation and director Kenji Kamiyama. Warner Brothers Animation recently showcased the film during a presentation at the 2023 Annecy International Animation Film Festival. There's a mouthful. And according to an initial report from Slash Film, it appeared the film would be injecting a heavy dose of feminism into Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings, which is entirely unneeded when you think about the fact that the greatest hero of his story is Luthien. You have Galadriel, you've got Melian, you've got Eowyn, and even Arwen in the book is a pretty awesome character. And of course you have Tarmiriel, who's a pretty tragic one. But as I said, you have Galadriel, who dominates the scene amongst the elves in the Third Age. You have, as stated, Luthien, Melian. These are great characters. So, I'm actually going to say Tolkien's already got a lot of female agency in his stories. So, yeah. I don't think it needs more. Now, I will grant you, we probably, if you're going to make a movie or something, you could probably stand to add a few female characters because there's not that many of them. But I don't think we really need all that many warriors. Because the reason Eowyn and Galadriel stand out as formidable women, one as a ruler and the other as a warrior, a shield maiden, is that you don't have that many of them so that they stand out all the more, so that their uniqueness is even more highlighted. At least that's how I tend to look at the characters. Anyways, Slash Film's initial report revealed the film would not have Helm Hammerhand as the main protagonist, as one would expect if they were adapting the brief short story found in Appendix A about Helm Hammerhand. Instead, the film is focusing on the unnamed daughter of Helm Hammerhand that the movie has named Hera. I think people are calling it Hera. Je vais juste rester avec la prononciation française. The film's producer, Philippa Boyan, I don't know how to spell it in English, defended the decision to have the film feature Hera as the main protagonist, saying, "Everyone else dies. And before you start complaining, this is already in the text. And also, the story takes place centuries before the movies. Why would we complain?" This seems... Now I'm worried, because she said, before you start complaining. But I wasn't going to. Everything she said is pretty much correct. Everyone else dies. It's already in the text, so why panic? Not only would it feature Hera as the main character, but according to Slash Film, there is a scene that shows the politics at play in Edoras, with a Lord of Rohan wanting to erase the history of a group of female warriors and banner women to the king. A prelude of things to come. No. Just no. You don't need to stick that kind of nonsense in there. Why would they erase their own history? It doesn't make any sense. Think logically. They have no need to erase any history of female warriors, especially as the Rohirrim have the finest tradition of shield maidens. I mean, just look at Eowyn. And the thing is, they are a rarity, but they stand out and they are respected and admired. See, Eowyn. So, yeah, this makes no sense. Now, a second report coming out of the presentation at Annecy International Animation Film Festival, I'll just say the film festival, reveals that the city of Edoras will be destroyed in the film. Anyways, the report comes from the OneRing.net, who details Edoras is destroyed. At the end of Act 1, we saw some beautiful art of a burnt Meduseld, and the rest of the movie is about the wreckage of war. The destruction of Edoras is contrary to Tolkien's short story, therefore it should not happen. Rohan loses to the forces of the Dunlendings and their allies led by Wolf in a battle at the crossings of Eisen. He would lead his people to the safety of the Hornburg, where they were besieged. However, Wolf would take a portion of his army to Edoras and take the city. Tolkien wrote, Wolf took Edoras and sat in Meduseld and called himself king. There Haleth, Helm's son, fell, last of all, defending the doors. The city would eventually be captured by Helm's nephew, Freolaf. Tolkien detailed then, Freolaf, son of Hildur, Helm's sister, came down out of Dunharrow, to which many had fled, and with a small company of desperate men, he surprised Wolf in Meduseld and slew him and regained Edoras. Now, this is all a bit of a nod to Sigmundur and whatnot, and how he retook the heritage of the Volsungs from their Gothic enemies, I believe it was. And either them or the Huns. But anyways, this is a nod to the Volsung saga. Honestly, the best saga of Norse mythology. At least of the tales detailing the deeds of men. Now, the deeds of the gods are, in some ways, even cooler. But anyways, this... No. I'm not on board with this. While there was clearly fighting in the city was not destroyed. First, Wolf took it as his own seat of power and declared himself king. It was then retaken by Freolaf. Not only does the report from the OneRing.net claim that Edoras is destroyed contrary to Tolkien's writing, but the site also provided further information about Hela, claiming Warner Bros. Wanted to have her as a protagonist because they wanted to explore a female point of view in Middle-earth. Of course they did. The outlet went on to note that she's not a warrior princess per se, so she is going to be one. Whenever they say she's not going to be this, she always ends up being one. The thing is, the studios are always liars. And I know that's harsh, but let's call a spade a spade. Let's call the situation out for what it is. And they also provided a physical description of her. She has red hair and a messy braid. Well, at least, like, they're always erasing redheads. So at least they're making a redhead. So that's a silver lining right there. So maybe this whole thing about redheads is starting to disappear. Maybe. Who knows? Probably not. But still, I like this. In a messy braid, leather armor, and a sword. We also see designs of her in formal dress. Yeah, but she's going to be a warrior princess. The OneRing.net also affirmed that Hela is based on the historical figure Aethelflaed. Yeah, but Aethelflaed never donned armor or used a sword. The daughter of Elfred the Great, who went on to become Lady of the Mercians and defended her people from the invading Viking raiders. Yeah, but that shouldn't be the inspiration for this character. I'm just saying, maybe a Helen of Troy character, but not Aethelflaed. In fact, the outlet claims that the entire social structure of Rohan is based on the Mercians. Doubtful. And described them as a warrior cult. Well, I'm just saying doubtful in how they're going to be depicted. Now, if you want to say the Mercians or the Danelaw are a good source of inspiration for Tolkien's vision of Rohan, maybe, sure. But this movie won't be like that. Warrior culture of a code, family-based power structures, and struggles with honor and loyalty being more important than wealth and riches. Okay, wondering.net does make a good point now that I think about it, if you consider Tolkien stories. A positive sign is that the outlet noted Freyalaf does indeed become king, as Tolkien wrote in his short story. I'm surprised they did that. Only reason I say that is, you know, well, it's today's Hollywood. Now, OneRing.net for their part. Let's just wait for it to load. The first in-depth look with spoilers at Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim. Actually, the other article was really well written. Huh. Okay, I'll have to go digging for it again, and I have to put it in the description because it's the right thing to do. Our Anime Insider has brought... Let's not call it anime. It's not anime. It's not... it's probably going to be done in anime style, but that's a doujinshi, isn't it? I believe that's the term for it. A Western-based doujinshi with anime style has brought us this exclusive report from the Warner Brothers panel at NAC en France that presented an exciting first look at the Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim. Panel members: Kinji Kamiyama, Japanese director. Japanese directors are usually really good. I really like Japanese films. I highly recommend several of the Taiga dramas. I would like to eventually understand enough to be able to understand the Taiheki 1991 drama. But the Taira no Kiyomori one was really good. I watched it with subtitles. Seriously, I'm going to plug that. Philippa Boyan, writer-producer. Shared shoutouts from Peter Jackson, Fran Walsh, and Andy Serkis. Producer and owner of Solo Studios was Joseph Cho, Jason DeMalco. Making of the film. WB raised the idea of an animated film. Philippa felt the question was, do we want to see familiar characters from the live-action films animated? Our kids love anime, which is their connection to the medium. Okay, actually, that's fine. They wanted to tell a complete story that was separate from either of the trilogies, and a story without the direct influence of the Ring or the Shadow of Mordor. Or the Shadow of Sauron. Sorry. Actually, let me go back up. Her kids love anime, which is her connection to the medium. Well, it's either that, now that I think about it, or she's trying to kind of... No, never mind. Wanted to find a story that in Middle-earth that fits with anime culturally. Try none of them. Why not use Western animation? Hire Don Bluth. Why does everything have to be anime these days? Especially since anime's dropping in quality these days in comparison to like back in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s. If we were to use Western animation, at least you could, you know, never mind. I don't think anyone really wants Western animation. 2D animation anymore. No point griping. And I know that's harsh, but the studios seem to have an axe to grind with 2D and love 3D, which I find 3D looks horrid these days. Looked great back in the day, but not anymore. Sorry for all the tangents. I don't really care to keep this video too focused. He's really good at keeping the story together, understanding place and scale, and keeping Philippa on track when she went down rabbit holes. I'm going to assume the opposite. The writing process began with Will Matthews and Geoffroy Aldis, who have comedy chops. Oh no. Not more comedy. That's what killed... Yeah, I didn't like that in Jackson's films. Especially Merry, Pippin, and Gimli. This is not gonna end well. Didn't want to write it. I felt too old, honestly, so she brought in her daughter Phoebe and her partner Artie Papajolgiu. Phoebe literally grew up on the sets, and most importantly, she understands the rhythm of Tolkien's language. Kenji was so excited to have a young female writer on board. Nothing like nepotism. Yeah, I'm becoming bitter in my old age. It's just I assume all movies are bad these days if they're made in the West. Now, Japanese, Korean, African films are really good, so do check them out. There's still hope in the world. We just need to look outside of our own realms. But maybe we can restore hope one day to our own lands. We saw concept art from John Howe, Alan Lee, Richard Taylor, and Mark Wilshire were also involved. Okay, at least visually it'll look good. Even I don't have anything to complain about. I'm just going to look at the dog. Okay, good. He's asleep. We also worked with Weta closely and literally used their models of Edoras. And finally, it fully takes place in the world of the film trilogies, and many of the images will look very familiar to fans. I would have preferred had they used the looks and, well, just go direct to the novel. When Kenji was approached with this idea, he thought it was impossible. Okay, at this point, him saying it's impossible, I doubt. Basically, this is just, they're trying to write a narrative, a story here within. Like, you know what I mean? Okay, I'm going to skip ahead because they're trying to turn this into essentially a novel, an epic adventure just for the actual adaptation and whatnot, which I don't care. He was probably paid and said, sure, I'll do it. Like, hey, it's Middle Earth. I'd be happy to do so. And then got to work. And I'm entirely serious when I say that. He probably went, oh, okay, sure. I doubt he went, this is impossible. No. A fan might ponder in that kind of mode, but even they would say, yeah, sure, I'll do it. All right, so let's look at the particulars of how to do it. So Kenji might have looked at it that way. So I don't think he would have said it's impossible. Like I said, I don't see it. There may be a character or two we recognize from the live action films. I believe Faramir and Eowyn. Editor's note. Saruman, and Saruman. Sure. Actually, that would make sense to an extent. It's about the failure of Helm Hammerhand. I wouldn't say the failure, as he does succeed in protecting his people, though it comes at the cost of his own life. So to say it's about the failure of Helm Hammerhand is being a little too... That's, I think, making an assumption. Maybe I should just make a Helm Hammerhand video soon. I'll continue my Rohan podcast, as I loved making those videos. I love the Rohirrim. Discussion of the Rohirrim culture as being based by JRT on the Mercians, a warrior culture with a code, family-based power structures and struggles with honor and loyalty being more important than wealth and riches. Well, I'd say that the Norse, the Anglo-Danish lords of the later period of what was Danelaw, like into the 10th century, I mean, might be more family-based and whatnot. Then again, so were the Anglo-Saxons in Wessex. So maybe I'm splitting hairs over nothing, and wondering.net is right about the Mercians. Anyways, so the historian comes out, and I just can't help but ponder every little sentence. We saw concept art, an image of elephants and orcs. Maybe they were wild men, maybe. Surrounding Edoras, we saw a rider with long yellow hair and a horn riding in front of an elephant, probably the female lead. No way are they going to make that someone like Helm or one of his sons. It's today's Hollywood. I know I'm sounding bitter and whatnot. I just don't see any reason to be cheery about this. We saw a lot of background art of Metacelt. Okay, actually, I'll say this. The background art probably looks great. Let's be honest. There's a lot of talented artists and animators out there. They definitely should get a shout out. So, like, this looks great. I mean, look at this. So, I can't really criticize that. Let's see, where was I? The movie begins with a voiceover from Eowyn, Miranda Otto herself. She talks about Hila, how she. Okay, maybe it would work best if she's telling the story to her kids while tucking them into bed, and you have kind of the interplay of, I think it's Sarah and Jim Hawkins from Treasure Planet. That might be how I'd stage the. Yeah, I'd probably stage the frame narrative in that context. But Hela, being a rebellious child, of course she is. Every young girl these days is depicted as a rebellious child. And I know I sound sardonic and sarcastic and bitter. I'm just tired of the rebel child. Why not the good child? Or the child who tries to be good but ultimately fails along the way and whatnot. Like Peter Pevensie, or even Susan Pevensie from the Narnia trilogy of movies. Those were great. Those two kept trying to be good, but they weren't always the best at being good little kids. And ultimately they screwed up, learned their lessons, screwed up some more, learned some more lessons, and came out wiser and better. And those were great movies. Better than the novels, I would argue. If you disagree, that's fine. Love what you love. But, oh man, like, then again, maybe House of the Dragon will probably bring in a good boy or girl and make them sympathetic. I think they did that with Aegon's sister wife, which I just find is a gross concept. Incest. Ugh. We got to see a rough cut of this beginning with a combination of CG models and hand-drawn animation. Okay. Hela rides across the plains, rides to the top of a bluff, of course she does, and tosses a huge hunk of meat into the air, of course, where it's snatched by a giant eagle. She almost touches the eagle, but it flies way before she can. This is her rebellion, right? Doing something that all the Rohirrim would love to do, because they're all kind of, I think the English term is mad lads and mad lasses, to an extent. So, not really that rebellious there. It's the sort of deed that Theoden would laugh about. And Eowyn would probably have done in her youth. Just saying. Maybe it might be interesting to have a more girlish lead who would rather sew dresses and whatnot, and where she's thrust into a shield maiden role. That would be a much more interesting story. Someone who doesn't want to become a warrior, but is made to become a she-warrior in order to protect her people and her family and whatnot. Maybe Hollywood could go with that angle in the future. Because at one point, I guess I just want a female character like Adrienne from the Rocky movies. I really liked her. Anyways, we saw another scene in Meduseld where Harold talks to Freyalof about heraldry, and then Hela comes to explain the Shield Maiden Herald and what it means. She and Freyalof are cousins, I think, reminiscent of Eomer and Eowyn. Helm comes in, commanding the attention the room, and sits on the throne. On the throne, not at the throne. We saw a still image of Helm in front of the Edoras gates, knee-deep in enemies. Again, I'm not sure if they're orcs or wildmen, or both. Maybe the concept art below, which is more likely to be the gates of the Hornburg, then called Soothburg, not Edoras. Jeez, that looks cool. Definitely got to use this for the thumbnail. Wow. Okay. Hela Gaia Wise, female main character, not named by Tolkien, but Helm's daughter is mentioned, and she was the character they wanted to explore. Wanted to explore a female point of view in Middle Earth, but she's not a... Yeah, okay. Already went over that. About sheets and designs for her. Yeah, they would have to do that. As an artist, you have to do different angles, primarily from the two sides, the back, the front, and you then have various expressions, probably like about 10 or 20. And what they'll then do is trace it and whatnot, or in Photoshop, for put it on the correct body and whatnot. And so you have that for every scene. It really cuts down on time and whatnot. So, yeah, I'm sure she's well drawn. I just hope it's done more. I prefer it in Western style, especially in the John Lounsbury style, favored by Don Bluth in the old days of Disney, like the Renaissance. Wolf, the other main character, the main antagonist, I think he's from the Wildmen. Big muscly dude. Okay, he's a big muscular dude. A big muscular man, not a muscly dude. With long hair, scruffy what? An axe, and furs, and a ragged cloak. Sorry if I'm getting a little impatient about the grammar. A scar over one eye. Okay, actually that does sound pretty cool. They solicited lots of ideas from the female staff in the studio. The note they got was, he does bad things, so make him beautiful. What? Okay. So he does bad things, so he's beautiful. Shouldn't he be like a human version of Scar or something? If he's doing... Oh, well. I'm not gonna... Okay. Helm Hammerhand, the one who should be the main character. Daddy vibes, he's got a big beard and a crown. Saw an expression sheet and a polished design. Red and blue clothing with beautiful, intricate gold details. Oh, that sounds pretty good. He's the leader of the Wildmen, and he offers his son's hand in marriage to Hera. That's the inciting incident of the movie and leads to Helm's big mistake. What big mistake? Oh, right, killing people with his bare hands. Helm doesn't take him seriously. He's trying to take over Rohan with this marriage. He's strong and tragic, but also a comedic figure. Seriously, he's an antagonist. Don't make him comedic. Quoted a line from the movie, "Fat and prosperous is when men are at their most dangerous." That makes no sense. Fat and prosperous makes them as little dangerous as possible. It's desperation that makes men dangerous. I'm gonna let that one go. This is just so annoying. Sorry, this just... For Elof, he wins everything in the end and becomes king. But still, like one of the villains being a comedic character. Why not make him someone with an edge? Of course, they thank WB and Philippa Boyan, and they look forward to seeing the War of the Rohirrim. I'm gonna watch it. Well, maybe, I don't know. I might not, because this doesn't sound like good news. Sounds like every other Hollywood movie. And if you think I'm too harsh, let me know in the comment section. I just don't have the energy for this anymore. I just don't have the energy. I've not really watched almost any Hollywood movies for about 10 years, as I've not seen the point, as the movies have just declined in quality. Now, if you want good movies, we've got a few we've reviewed in our Epic Fantasy Reviews playlist, and also on our Nightmare Reviews channel. So check out that one, as we review a lot of old horror over there and even read some horror books and whatnot. We're gearing up to do some Solomon Kane content out over there, which is pretty exciting. Anyways, tell me what you all think of this. Do you think I'm too harsh? Do you think I'm too soft? Let me know. This just sounds like every other movie. Just gonna be honest. Honestly, I was kind of looking forward to this, so I'm a little disappointed, but I'm not surprised. So if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to smash that like and that subscribe button, as though you were, we'll say, Eru Ilúvatar punishing Númenor for their hubris.